Hello, all, and welcome to the Movie Bears podcast. I'm Brad Harris, and each week I'm joined by handsome, hairy, huggable homos who love movies to discuss film and sometimes review movie news. Although this week we have a seriously frickin' packed show, so sorry, no movie news. As usual, I'm joined by my partner, Jim Gliaffico.
I'm his partner, and I make maps apparently. So
Apparently you do.
Hi guys, and welcome everybody who's listening and watching to the podcast.
As well as Will Lindis. Will, welcome back. Uh-oh, Will. Uh-oh.
Oh, hey guys.
Oh no.
Be back.
Uh-oh. We're reviewing Into the Woods, not Theory of Everything. Will, are you here? Sorry, that was horrible.
Oh, that was awful. Can you hear me okay?
We can now.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's first of all, I'm glad to be here, even if I am not your partner, nor am I a map maker, but I'm still glad to be here, part of the crew.
Well, good to have you as well. Fingers crossed that Google Plus holds out on us here. We're already having some difficulties here, but we'll keep going. The joys of doing it live, right? So, all right. We are also very, very thrilled to welcome back a special guest. He was with us earlier this summer. You may recognize him from HBO's recent film, The Normal Heart, or maybe you even saw him on NBC's 30 Rock. Adam Shapiro, welcome back.
Hi Bears. It's good to be back. Thank you for having me.
Of course. I see you're wearing some very svelte, silky pajamas. Is that what those are?
I mean, it is. You got to remember, it's 3 hours later right now where I am, so it's inching towards my bedtime. So I was like, we're all friends. I'm gonna get comfortable.
Plus tomorrow's a big night, right? It's New Year's Eve, so you're just
New Year's Eve, exactly.
Gotta rest up for tomorrow.
These are like my Santa Claus / Hugh Hefner pajamas.
They're perfect because, of course, it is a bear podcast. So now we got a little fur, right? So.
I mean, well, I remember what was said after I logged off last time about my unbuttoned shirt and my chest hair. So I was like, okay.
You're going to hear absolutely no complaints from us.
No. In fact, we may have to focus the camera on you a few times just to look. No, that's creepy. I'm sorry. Bad job.
That's a different
website. Oh, MB Powderbait, what? Anyway, so, Adam, catch us up on what you've been up to since the summer. Last we talked, you were getting ready for Nothing Normal, right?
Yeah, Nothing Normal premiered in September at 54 Below, and it was a huge success. As a little sequitur for our discussion tonight, my special guest from The Normal Heart was Danielle Furland, who was the original Little Red in Into the Woods.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
Yeah. And it was really... Remember she played the lesbian volunteer in Normal Heart? That was Little Red.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was incredible. We've done it now 3 times. We did it at 54 Below, the Metropolitan Room, and Urban Stages in New York. We're going to be back at the Metropolitan Room on February 16th, and anyone who mentions Bear Movie Podcast will get $5 off.
Yes.
That's awesome.
You heard it, listeners.
I'd love to give more, but I'm calling it the bare minimum.
I love it. I love it. That's great. Well, we have a lot of listeners in New York. It's actually our second biggest audience area.
Well, I promise bear hugs to anyone that comes. So
see, I'm jealous of anyone who gets to go. $5 off and a bear hug. How can you miss that, right?
I'm a giver. You know, the holidays. I'm in a giving mood. Wow. Okay, strike that.
He means giving the bear discount at the show. That's what he means. Don't let your mind run too far afield.
Or into the woods. Yeah.
Oh, very nice. Very nice.
I think you have to
find the discount in the woods.
But no, so I'm really excited to be continuing with that. I'm actually going to be back on NBC January 7th in The Mysteries of Laura.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my life in a nutshell. And at some point, we don't have to do it now, but I also want to plug a bear event that's happening in a couple of weeks that I'm going to be attending that I'm very excited about.
No better time than the present, Adam. What bear event is this?
Great. The event is called Bare Your Soul. I don't know if any of you have heard of it. It's at Easton Mountain, which is about 30 miles north of Albany, New York, and it's this wonderful. I call it a retreat center. It's the easiest way to describe it. It used to be a ski lodge.
Oh.
So it's in the mountains. It's surrounded by just gorgeous everything. And they do these retreats for gay men, and a couple times a year they do this one called Bare Your Soul, which is they describe it as not your ordinary bear run. And it's very true. They do all these cool workshops and seminars. Some are like body image based. Some are more touch based. I've been twice, and each time you just meet the most incredible men, and it's really like basically if you go up there, you find yourself enveloped into this family. So it's really exciting. It starts January 16th, and if you visit eastonmountain.org/bareyyoursoul, you can get all the information. You can see pictures from past events. It's really just an incredible event. So if you're in the New York area or able to get to the New York area, it's just a great event. And if you can't make it to this one, they'll have another one later in the year.
Wow, that sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. I mean, a lot of the bear runs, if you've been to several bear runs, you know that they can tend to get repetitive, I guess, a little bit. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, dance, whatever. Yeah.
I've been to one official bear run, and it was fun. But what I said is that at the end of the event, I felt like I'd spent a whole weekend eating cotton candy. I was hungry for something media, which is ironic considering who's there. But at the end of Bare Your Soul, I feel like everything's been nourished.
Wow.
And it's really, and there's plenty of the fun bear run elements. It's really a cool event.
Sounds pretty spectacular. Maybe we'll get a chance to check it out someday, babe.
I hope so.
Yeah. We gotta. Looking for something a little bit different. This sounds like it might be fun to explore.
It is. I'll just leave it at that.
You had me at Touch Workshop.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, Touch Workshop? I'm there.
They have this one particular workshop that's combines body image, combines touch, and it's really cool. And I've seen people come into it, kind of nervous, kind of closed off, and by the time they complete it, it's like they've completely opened up. It's really
wow.
It's like it just strips away all of your barriers.
Yeah, that's exactly what it does.
That's awesome. Well, anyone in the area, it sounds like you have two awesome things to go to that are going to make me a little jealous. Nothing normal, of course, as well as Bare Your Soul. But yeah, Adam, we'll definitely put some links in the show notes and stuff, and on the website, so that people can find you and the show and all that good stuff. We are, of course, thrilled to have you back. And what better episode to have you on than our discussion of Into the Woods, right?
Yay!
The long-awaited musical movie Into the Woods.
Absolutely. Well, are you guys ready to Well, I guess I should preface this real quick. So, those of you who are listening live, or on digital tape delay, I guess, we're actually discussing 3 movies tonight. Of course, the primary 2 being Into the Woods and The Imitation Game, which we'll get to a little later on. We'll also spend a few minutes, a few only, talking about The Interview because. Yeah, I'm a little tired of hearing about that. But we saw it, so I feel like it's maybe worth talking about a little bit. So,
Yeah.
but
I mean, besides being a Bear podcast, I mean, all 3 of these movies have a bit of a gay spin to them, don't you think? I mean, the first one is a full-on, Broadway musical.
Gay explosion.
Movie.
A musical, a bromance,
and the story of one of the heroes, I guess a World War II hero that happened to be gay. So
Indeed. And then the last movie is about a bear stoner who gets America into trouble.
There's a lot of butt jokes in that movie and bromance, butt jokes and bromance, right?
Mm-hmm. And what better than that?
And really? A famous celebrity comes out.
Yeah.
You should say that.
All right. Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves too much.
Well,
yeah.
Are you guys ready to head into the woods? See what I did right there?
Yeah.
All right. Well, here we go. Here comes our discussion of Into the Woods. And now that we've left some silence for Jim to edit in the trailer in post-production, we'll start this out as we so often do by talking about the movie spoiler-free, so that those of you who haven't seen it yet and maybe tuning in to check out our thoughts do not have your virginal innocence ripped away. And then, of course, we'll give you fair warning before we get into spoiler supreme territory. Will, why don't you set this movie up for us and give us your initial thoughts?
Yeah, so Into the Woods the musical premiered in 1986 in San Diego at the Old Globe Theater. It had music and lyrics by Stephen Sondheim, book by James Lapine, and iconic performances by Bernadette Peters and Joanna Gleason. It went on to win several Tonys. It had 2 Broadway productions, a national tour, a televised production on, I believe, PBS, and massive popularity amongst fans of musicals. So the Disney film adaptation, which is what we're reviewing today, tells the story of a baker and his wife who encounter classic fairy tale characters such as Little Red Riding Hood, Cinderella, Jack of Beanstalk fame, as they all lose and subsequently find themselves in the woods. For starters, huge disclaimer, nothing can ever replace the original production. I never got a chance to see it live, but I've seen the televised production. I absolutely love it and hold it very near and dear to my heart. Still, knowing that nothing can really top the original, I enjoyed this adaptation quite a bit. Act 1, to me, was pitch perfect in every sense of the word. The songs were well performed. The actors hit all of their necessary marks, including Johnny Depp, who, honestly, I was worried coming into this that they were going to overly use Johnny Depp and maybe subvert the core narrative. They didn't. Meryl Streep is a very worthy witch. I think she fit into Bernadette Peters' shoes quite well. Meryl Streep's one of those people who's able to find a lot of nuance in her line readings. I was even reading some things in that, every one of her takes, she found different ways of emoting or different ways of, different facial expressions, different keywords to hone in on. The people that were making the film with her were saying it was just such an enjoyable experience, her being able to find all of this nuance and depth in the lyrics. And Chris Pine delivered what may end up being one of my favorite comedic performances of the year, at least in my estimation. Act 2 stumbles just a bit for me. We'll talk about why in spoilers, but let's just say there are 2 major flaws that kept this film. It was a really, really good film, and I think these 2 major things kept it from being really great for me. Without getting into spoilers, one of those has to do with a change in the outcome of a particular character's story, and then the impact that that change has on some of the other characters. And the other has to do with...
Uh-oh. All right, let's pause for a sec. Will, if you can hear me, let's pause.
Final sequence. Again, we'll come back around to those.
Hey, Will, you are cutting in and out pretty bad. Are you still with us?
Can you hear me?
Ah, there we go. Now we can. I think we lost you somewhere amidst Act 2. It started cutting in and out really bad, and then went silent. So if you kind of want to back up.
Yeah, you already covered that. There was some things in Act 2 that maybe kept a good thing from being a great thing.
Yeah, and those two things in Act 2 really, again, without talking about them yet, we'll talk about them in spoilers. The two things that really kept the film from being the absolute best that it could be, they changed the outcome of a particular character's story, and that creates a cascade effect which impacts other things in the story. And then they changed the way they delivered the final sequence wasn't 100% on note for me. We'll talk about the specifics about those in a moment, but I found myself as a fan of this musical picking this about even more than I would have if I hadn't. I kept saying like, oh, the musical did it this way, the musical did it that way. And then I stepped back and really thought like, well, I think a lot of these changes were necessary, some of which in adapting something from stage to screen, and some of which because this is a Disney property and Disney owns certain characters, including Rapunzel, including Snow White, including Sleeping Beauty, and they had to make necessary changes to the story because they couldn't, it would have affected their other properties. I would personally say that if you're one of those people that maybe doesn't like musicals, okay, I get it. Maybe this isn't the right film for you. But if you enjoy musicals, if you're someone like me who is able to enjoy when someone's able to combine music and narrative, is able to go into a lot of different places, which this film does, from a standpoint of like comedic elements versus dark elements, endearing elements versus thought-provoking elements, all backed by very, very, very brilliant lyrics and well-performed songs. I think Into the Woods is a must-watch, and certainly better than some of the other musicals that are out in theaters right now. Yeah. So I would say go watch it.
Okay. I think this is going to be a fun back-and-forth discussion tonight, because I kind of wish I'd seen the movie you did. To be fair, okay, so I'm one of those gays. I love musicals as much as I love football. I like to say I'm a very well-balanced gay. And I've seen a lot of musicals. I enjoy many of them. But I've never seen Into the Woods performed. And so this was totally like a virginal experience for me going in. And I have to say, I mean, it wasn't great for me. I mean, maybe C-. James Corden I thought was super cute. Emily Blunt I thought did pretty decent overall. Meryl Streep and Johnny Depp were kind of fun. I agree, Will. Chris Pine was kind of a standout for me. I really enjoyed him. Anna Kendrick was Anna Kendrick. But the biggest issues that I have with this movie are really like the story and the music itself, which are kind of the two of the three main staples. It could be because I've been shotgunning a lot of Once Upon a Time lately, trying to catch up so that I could watch the Frozen stuff. I'd never seen that show either, but I'm kind of like, I think I'm a little over some of the like fairy tales retold genre stuff at this point. And so now that we're getting like retold versions of like Cinderella and Jack and the Beanstalk, kind of like, okay, Disney, I already saw you do a lot of this stuff already in this other show and like 8 other movies you've done recently. But the biggest thing here for me is just the music. I think coming at it fresh, there are a few issues that kind of made it hard for me to get into it. A lot of the music just sort of suffers, at least for me, from having like too many words like slurred together too fast, like rapid fire. And for me, I found myself struggling to like understand what they were singing about sometimes. I'd still be processing like 3 lines of dialogue, 3 lines of lyrics earlier, and then I'm like, wait, what's going on? A cow? What? Huh? And so it made it hard for me to kind of connect with some of the characters and sort of follow what was going on sometimes. Orchestrally, I think a lot of the music sounds the same, so a lot of the numbers kind of blur together. Usually when I see a musical, there's like 6 or 7 standout songs, and I walk out of it and I'm like, oh, there was this song and this song and this song. I think I can only really name 2. Agony and On the Steps of the Palace. And so, some of the music was, I guess, a little, it sounds harsh, I don't mean it to be, but it was just a little forgettable to me. There just didn't seem to be as many standout numbers. The exception to this, though, was the Agony number with Chris Pine. I agree, that was awesome. I freaking loved that. I was laughing my ass off during that number. I sing that song in the shower, so that's kind of a crown jewel for me from this movie. But I mean, just in general, I thought a lot of the music kind of blurred together, and that left me a little bored sometimes. And then the other thing for me is just like, I get that it's called Into the Woods. I don't need to hear variations of that title like 50 times throughout the movie, like into the wood, in the woods, by the woods, from the woods, go to the woods. I get it, lots of wood. I won't forget the name, I promise.
I'm gay, remember?
So, I mean, overall, there were things about this movie that I enjoyed. Is it my favorite musical movie ever? Not even close. Was it the worst musical movie ever? Probably not. But I just kind of felt like there was a little bit of a lack of focus with like the message that it was trying to get across. Like maybe, I mean, we'll talk about it more in spoilers, but maybe the message was more overt, like in the stage play. But I just found it a little harder to grasp at coming in as an Into the Woods virgin. But I mean, I would say if you like musicals, definitely go out and see it. But for me, I kind of wish I'd waited for rental or VOD. How about you, Adam? Now that I've crapped all over the movie.
That's okay. Everybody has their own opinion. Now, I have my background is in musical theater. The majority of my career has been in musical theater. I am incredibly familiar with the stage show. There was a time where I was watching the video of the performance like once a week. I know this show, and as a performer, I have a lot of expectations when a musical is turned into a movie. Having said that, I loved it. I came into this, I was so scared. I was so scared because, I'm going to be honest here, the majority of the recent attempts to turn musicals into movies have failed dismally, in my opinion. Do I need to say anything more than Les Miserables? Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, it was atrocious. And with this show being so dear to me, I hear the casting and I'm thinking, okay, this could work, but I said that about Les Mis.
Right.
Rob Marshall knows how to direct a musical, but it's been a while. And let's face it, Chicago and 9 were very similar. So I was like, is he capable of taking on a much bigger show? And I actually got to go to a screening in New York a couple weeks before the movie actually premiered, and I went with friends who are also musical people, and we were all really scared going into this, and just I thought they took what worked and made it work on screen. I thought there were some, am I saying it's a perfect movie? No, it's not a perfect musical. But I think some of the holes in the script of the musical were fixed for the movie. I thought, and one of the things that I was so thrilled about was that I thought all of the actors, while they completely respected the property, didn't feel, what's the word I'm looking, didn't
bound?
Feel bound to the actors who originated the roles to try to try to pull from their interpretations. Meryl Streep and Bernadette Peters are two very different people. Emily Blunt and Joanna Gleason are two very different people. And I thought they found something different to their roles. I admit I'm not the hugest Anna Kendrick fan, so I agree. Anna Kendrick was Anna Kendrick. Mm-hmm. She sounded good. I thought the kids were cute. I usually get very annoyed with kids in musicals, but these were cute. And I agree with you. I thought Chris Pine found the humor in that role just beautifully.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so thrilled that they cast a baker that looks like he eats pastry.
Yes.
Because the role was originated on Broadway, as a lot of people know, by Chip Zien, who's wonderful and was great in the role, but he's a little nebbishy Jewish guy, and I don't believe he even eats bread, let alone makes it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yes.
Somebody else is eating all those tarts, I guess.
Well, Little Red.
Little Red Riding Hood.
Yeah, Little Red. Yeah.
But so I was thrilled with that casting, and again, not perfect. There were certain things that made me go, which we'll get into later. But overall, I was elated with the way this movie turned out.
Cool. And so glad to have you on the show to give us the background of the stage show, because and I think the show might our opinions might fall into line with whether we're familiar with the play or not. Mm-hmm. I'd like to see I wish there was a way to get that information from the general public. Of people who've seen the show before, how many liked it, of people who haven't.
Exit polls.
Yeah, that would be interesting, because I think on this show we're kind of falling on similar lines. Like Brad, I had never seen Into the Woods on stage, or even the TV one, and I now, Will, after what you said, and Adam, after what you said, I think I do want to go back and revisit that. If there's a way for me to view that,
there is, and it's actually my plug.
I would definitely want to go back and see that, because this movie just didn't really hit all the spots for me, and I typically enjoy musicals when they're brought from the stage to the screen. I mean, things like Sweeney Todd, another Sondheim one. I actually enjoyed that one a lot more than I enjoyed this one, even though I know that's gotten. Yeah, the movie. I kind of like that one. I thought, Depp got both panned and praised for his singing and stuff in that movie. But I just enjoyed. Maybe it was the story. It felt more, even though it was fantastical in parts, it felt a little more grounded. As as kind of a revenge, story. And some of the songs in that I had never really heard before. But now, I hum all the time. I hear you, Joanna. And some of those songs I really like. Nothing in this movie really grabbed me quite the same way. So, again, probably just I think it's familiarity. I think going into it, if you know the songs and know the beats, the emotional beats that are within the story, it might hit you a little bit different. Otherwise, I'll just say, I thought the movie had a different look than something like Les Miserables. It looked almost like it was staged on a sound stage. It didn't look like your typical live-action movie. Like, every time they were in the woods, it seemed like they were in the woods on a stage or on a sound stage, the way it was lit and so forth. And maybe that's what does appeal to people who are familiar with the stage show, because it maybe has that look. Because when it kind of veered into the special effects area, I thought that was a weakness of the movie, like the giant and the beanstalk things. I thought I saw this before in a very, very terrible movie, and you copied the same crappy special effects from Jack the Giant Slayer. And that's all I could think of when we got to that part of the movie. I just don't think that helped the movie at all. And I think on the stage, I think they probably did it different, because they can't obviously have a giant, but they probably had I think I heard somebody say they had a foot or something like that.
There's a lot more illusion to stuff, or implied action in the.
And maybe that worked. Maybe that worked better than the distraction of the CG giant at the end. But and the kids' performances, like you, Adam, I typically don't like kids in movies or musicals. I think I found Jack to be decent. I didn't like the Little Red in here in this movie, particularly her singing voice. It just wasn't for me. So yeah, I guess that's where I fall. I do want to go back and see the. Will, when you plug it, I'm going to be taking notes because that's what I'm going to do. Yeah.
If I may, on the subject of Little Red, just if you don't know where that girl came from, that Lilia Crawford just played Annie in the revival, in the most recent revival.
That's right. Yeah.
That's where they found her.
Very cool.
And I'm gonna go a little off subject here, but because I saw Into the Woods twice, and the second time I then piggybacked and went into Annie.
The new Annie?
Yep.
Oh boy. Yeah.
Remember what I said earlier about most
you were afraid?
musicals have failed miserably?
Mm-hmm.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
Well, it's too bad because on the last couple of days, Brad and I have been kicking around what movie to go see today, and actually we were going to go last night too. And the choice came down between Annie and this movie called Wild with Reese Witherspoon.
Oh yeah.
Luckily, I think we made the right choice.
I think so too.
Yeah. We're talking like 2 musicals in theaters at the exact same time, and for me, Into the Woods is one of my favorite musical film adaptations. Mm-hmm. And Annie has the dubious honor of being one of my absolute least favorite musical film adaptations.
Did you see the new one?
I did see the new one, and the new one was pretty awful all the way across the board. Not to veer too much, but the only moments that I really enjoyed the new Annie were there were a couple of actual tender, genuine moments between Kavanjane and Jamie Foxx when they weren't singing. But as soon as they started to get into like, oh, now it's time to do the song, like it felt very staged, super auto-tuned, and
as I've said, never did a movie need to be a musical less.
Yes. Yes.
Seriously.
Well, and I think we suffered from the same thing, Adam, that you said you had that fear of going into the woods, how bad they were going to maybe fuck it up. And in this case for you, Into the Woods was a pleasant surprise. I'm just afraid of, because there are some musical numbers from Annie, even though that I don't think the movie's a masterpiece or anything, there are some musical numbers in there that are kind of close to my heart. And to see them fuck that up like I've heard that they've done.
And they did.
It's just like...
all across the board.
It would kill me. So.
Oh, jeez.
I won't see it. Yeah.
Oh.
God.
Cameron Diaz singing. Enough said.
She needs to just like get her tiger or whatever it was from the counselor and just lay around, and that can be the sum total of her career at this point. Maybe, I don't know.
Something.
Yeah. But anyway, to wrap up my impressions, like you guys, I love the Chris Pine, Billy Magnuson number, Agony. I thought that for me was a standout. I did like Meryl Streep as the witch, especially in the first act. Before she, well, I don't want to spoil, but
ride the line, Jim.
The witch performance and the number that she did. I think it's called "Stay with Me." Is that it?
Yes.
I do like that song. And not that the Agony song is a great song per se, but it was a fun number in the movie. I had also heard that, and you guys that there's a reprise of that number later on in the stage show, maybe, that they did not use, and some people were a little bit upset about that. Of course, I wasn't because I hadn't seen it, but...
That's one of the domino effects from the thing that I was mentioning before. I don't get into spoilers.
Yeah.
I really like Agony because it's ballady.
And he rips open his shirt. That's what you like.
Well, there is that, too. That was enjoyable.
Is that why you sing it in the shower?
Well... Maybe. Oh, goodness. Well, are you guys ready to move on to some spoilerage for Into the Woods?
I think so.
Yeah.
Let's go into those woods.
Oh, goodness. Will, I hate you so much right now.
Into
no, I'm
the
just
spoiler
kidding.
woods we go.
All right. Well, those who are hanging out with us live, I see you. You're not commenting yet, but feel free to do so, and we'll be happy to give you a shout-out. But if you have not yet seen Into the Woods and you do not want to be spoiled, you may want to step away for the next 15 minutes or so, go make a sandwich, watch mindless TV or something, and then come back, whatever. But here we go. Spoilers are officially fair game. Where do you guys want to start on spoilers.
There's one thing I'd like to bring up, and it was kind of the big. I was all praise before. I want to talk, I guess, kind of get my negative out of the way now that we're in Spoiler Town. The thing that I thought that they changed that I wish they hadn't had to do with Rapunzel. And these are spoilers for the stage show, so it's kind of hard to separate the two while we're talking here in movie land. But in the stage show, she doesn't ride off with the prince. She is, after having been imprisoned in the tower, and then later banished in the desert, she actually goes mad. And the madness is part of why the prince wanders and why she ends up running recklessly towards the lady giant who kills her. This then results in that part where we have the reprise where Meryl Streep does the Stay With Me reprise. She sings this song that's called Lament, which is very short, and it segues into the first of the Children Won't Listen lines. And it rips my guts out every time I hear it. It is one of the most powerful things ever. It's not only is it a powerful song that comes from this kind of this dark death, but it's also an interesting thing because it gives her some justification for why she locked her in the tower to begin with. See, in her mind, if only Rapunzel had listened, she would have been safe. So aside from the show-stopping number, when we get that later on, that what I consider the "fuck you" song, in part of the "It's Your Fault" song, where they're all laying the blame, and then the witch basically gives her "fuck you" to everyone, and throws the beans and goes away. It's a lot more powerful there because she's saying all of these things to them because, in a way, she considers them responsible for Rapunzel's death as well. It really pulls them, and it really pulls the world into this gray area. Another domino later on in the song, or later on in the musical, during the finale, we have this section where all of the different cast members are singing about how there's a lot of gray area, right? And that's one of the big themes of this this show. And one of the lines has to do with, like, witches can be right. And they kind of realize that, in a lot of ways she was right about some things. And you lose a little bit of that because Rapunzel wasn't killed. So a lot of the things that I came out of here saying, like, these are little quibbles. I actually enjoyed like the way they adapted, the way they plugged some of those holes. That was the one thing I really wish they would have done, because I think that it would have. I think for people that felt like the ending wasn't satisfactory or that it didn't really drive home a message, I think killing Rapunzel and then letting the rest of those dominoes fall might have completed that package a little bit.
Yeah, I want to touch on that a little bit, and Adam, I'm sure you can lend your perspective too. So what I'm struggling to get from the movie, I guess, is the overall message, like, be careful what you wish for, because what you actually get may be way more horrible than you imagine. Is that pretty much it?
Well, I think a big part of it is now, if I may also divert back to the stage show for 1 second, because obviously in this movie there is no intermission. The Act 1 finale of the stage show is called Ever After, and it's basically the end of all the stories that we know. Okay. Cinderella marries the prince, Rapunzel marries the prince, the baker and his wife have the baby, Jack and his mother are now rich and happy, and the song is called Ever After. And at the end of the song, you see the second beanstalk rising. Act 2 then opens with this whole thing of everybody's content, and I don't know if the song actually has a title other than Act 2 opening. But one thing that keeps getting said is I didn't know I could be so happy. It's.
So then things start to unravel, kind of back.
Exactly.
Yeah. What they did in the movie, though, that I really liked, because they've, when you see Cinderella and the prince driving off after their wedding, and the baker and his wife had the baby, and then the narration says, and those that deserve to were destined to live happily ever. Boom! The giant destroys everything. And I think that's a major point of the movie, is that things don't get wrapped up happily ever after always.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I mean, like, Will, you mentioned
definitely a be careful what you wish for element, but it's also don't put your faith in this happily ever after necessarily. Right. Just because you get what you want doesn't mean things aren't going to fall to shit.
Well, one of the things you mentioned was the Rapunzel story and how you wish they had done that a little bit different, and that was one of the things that I didn't quite get either. Is it just kind of fizzled out for me. That whole storyline didn't really, didn't really have any weight other than the fact that she has the hair of gold or whatever, right? That they were looking for. Beyond that, I didn't get much out of that story, and maybe if it had done what it had done in the stage play as you described, it might have made more of an impact for me.
Yeah, I ultimately enjoyed what they did with the Rapunzel story because I think they tied things together there, and it then impacted the way the Prince Charming and Cinderella story played out in a different way than the stage production, and I enjoyed that. But I do feel like just that one little element could have made the themes a little bit more strongly felt because this is a play and I'm sorry, it is a musical. It's not a play. That has a lot of very complex and gray area themes, and that's part of why I enjoy it so much. It's not a very black and white thing. Yeah, we do have these elements of be careful what you wish for, or sometimes shitty things happen to us even when we expected them to go a different way. We also have this theme. One of the things all the way through the story is don't be a shitty parent. Be active and be there for your kid. We see that through the baker and wanting to be a father. We see that through his father having abandoned him and all the stuff that happened from him. You see that from what happens with the witch and Rapunzel, and you see that tied together at the end, where basically the baker has to step up to the plate and be a good father. And another theme is we have all these characters going into the woods, and yes, the woods are trees, and the trees are just wood, but past that, the trees are also a metaphor for boom. The trees are a metaphor for just like rough things that happen to us, right. Obstacles, hurdles, whatever. And all of these characters, the four kind of core characters, all went into the woods by themselves. The baker, Red, Jack, and Cinderella. They all started their journey by themselves. And we tie together with this theme of community where when obstacles happen, you have to band together. No one is alone, as the song says, and at the end of it, they're banded together as a unit. So there are a lot of complex themes that are all kind of happening and bubbling under the surface, and I do think that the parenting one we lost a little bit just because of what happened with the witch and Rapunzel, and we also didn't get to see in the stage production. There's a song where towards the end where the baker reunites with his father, and they kind of have a bit of a moment. But yeah, that's the only one that I think really fell flat for me in terms of the themes. I thought the other felt really impactful.
And we do have to remember also, this is a Disney movie.
Yes.
Disney did make the movie. In short, they couldn't kill everyone.
They couldn't kill the star of Tangled. I mean, Disney owns Tangled.
I was going to ask that. There were a few deaths in the movie that happen in the story. Was that Disney-fied for the movie based on the stage play? Because, I mean, they didn't really show the death of, what's her name in the tree with the giant?
The baker's wife?
Yeah, I mean, they showed the tree falling over, but they never really, I mean, and the guy brings a scarf back, right, at the end.
That's pretty close. Yeah, that's how that happened. Yeah. Same with,
I just didn't know if they kind of softened some of the impact of the deaths in the movie for Disney.
I'm trying to think. The only one I can think of is Jack's mother.
Right. Uh-huh.
In the musical, that's a much more deliberate. In this, they turned it into an accident, which I have to admit I kind of liked because I always that moment in the show, like the Princess Steward, actually like takes his staff and fucking knocks her in the head.
Oh wow!
And I've always kind of thought, dude. Unnecessary.
Yeah. Where the hell did this come from this character?
And I like Tracy Ullman. I
know. So that was the only other death. That was the only death that was kind of softened a little bit.
Okay.
And I didn't mind it.
See, I wondered about that because Jim, I think you had gone to the bathroom at that point when that character died, and I was a little sleepy.
My damn bladder.
I was a little sleepy, so I don't know if I missed something, but I thought it was just it was almost like an incidental death. Like, I saw her fall or whatever, but it just looked like she fell. I didn't understand that she had died, I guess, and maybe I fell asleep for a second, but I didn't understand she died until like the next whatever, and they're like, oh yeah, Jack's mom died, and I'm like, wait, what? She just fell down. Did I miss something? Like, was it more overt?
It was just a shove, and then it panned over to her. Like, the assumption being that, because she was up against that, like, fallen log, the assumption being that she hit her head on that or something like that.
Oh, okay.
I thought she would have helped to actually sort of see the moment after she fell, see her, like, react or something. Maybe it could have been clarified a little bit.
Not bleed out on the ground or something.
Yeah. We don't necessarily need like slow motion injury. Yeah.
We don't need like a Game of Thrones style like sticking into her head with blood shooting.
I mean, if that were the case, then at the end when they killed the giant with the slingshot,
I know.
Something would have like embedded in her.
I know. It's like that rock that they hit the giant with would have been like a pebble hitting it in the forehead.
Uh-huh. Right.
Yes. Did you guys realize that that's Madame Maxine from Harry Potter?
I was wondering if there was going to be a big reveal because I kept trying to look through the trees to see who is that. Are they going to have like some big cameo, appearance and
Glenn Close or somebody?
Yeah, exactly.
Meryl Streep playing Glenn Close, playing a giant.
Oh,
Helen Mirren.
Yeah, my boyfriend, he actually leaned over to me right after the movie and said, the giant was so-and-so, right? And it was like, ding, 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 oh my gosh, it was. Yeah.
But no, I agree. That last, I will say, that's a problem when you stage versus screen. You have to show it.
Yeah.
Because you can.
Right.
And it's like that was one thing where I'm like, I almost wish we could have seen less of the giant.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. Yeah.
Because it's that sort of 1970s horror movie mentality of what is scarier than the unseen.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And this is compared to the stage production, which you have no giant. You have no props showing the giant, at least in the stage production. That's all. It's more just like when they're talking to the giant, they're looking up, and then there's a voice booming from off stage. So you're left to kind of fill in the blanks.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I did have one other thing that was kind of a small thing for me that I wish that they had done differently. In a musical, you've got to tell the audience what you're about to see kind of in three ways, right? You tell them beforehand, you tell them during it, and then you summarize it in your finale sequence. That tends to be how musicals present their themes. And in Into the Woods, we've talked about them having very, very complex themes. In this one, the finale song really ties a lot of those together. But in this production, or this showing of it, what we had was the final song played as we're seeing kind of like images of the cast and kind of the credits. And what ended up happening in my show, a lot of people that don't sit through credits. Like, as soon as the first name appears on the screen, they're like, I'm good to go. Love the movie, hate the movie, whatever. It's like that's the time to stand up and go. So I think that there's a good number of people that maybe didn't get the final message or didn't get everything because they just got into credititis and walked early. I wish maybe that they had actually incorporated that into the sequence and then had the credits roll over something orchestral or something.
I have this complaint about a lot of movies, and I totally agree with you here. It's like, I realize you want people to stay for the credits, and yes, everyone who made the movie, you know what? They deserve to have their names read and get recognition. But if you're leaving part of the narrative or the message out of the main part of the thing and put it in the credits, I think a lot of people are going to miss out on that. I think it's an unfair expectation. Yeah, right. And, there are certain movies where people are like, oh, well, if you stayed till, the very end of the credits when you had that 12-second stinger, you totally would have understood what the movie was about. I'm like, that's not my problem. That's the movie studios. But
Stinger should be different. Stinger should be for fun add-ons, not like the actual narrative.
Right.
Yeah. But
I don't know. See, I do, as a as someone in the entertainment field, I do stay for the credits just because I'm like,
Yeah.
people were instrumental in making this project. And then, you remember the opening of The Great Muppet Caper? Where they're in the balloon while the credits are rolling, and Fozzie says, "Nobody reads those names anyway, do they?" They all have families.
I do tend to stay at least through the cast list.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I sit to the end just because that's something that someone said to me a while ago. Who is actually in the industry? It's like, all these people put a lot of time into this, and as soon as I heard that, it's like, you know what? Unless I'm just like I'm about to pee myself, like gotta run, I'll sit through the credits.
Uh-huh. Sometimes, if you have to pee, you'll pee and then come back and watch the rest of them.
because some of them are really long.
Yeah,
They'll be still going these days. Yeah.
Yep.
Brad, what did we watch the other night? Just last night, where the credits were like 2 panels and it was done. Sunset Boulevard.
Sunset Boulevard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
That's how it used to be.
Yeah.
Was that all the credits were at the beginning, and then at the end it was basically page 1 of cast, page 2 of cast. Good night.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, it ended, and I'm like, wait, where's the rest of the credits? This is not right. Something's off. But
You were ready for the credits, Mr. DeMille.
I was. Oh, I see what you did there. That was adorable.
Thank you.
All right. Well, guys, any final thoughts on Into the Woods at this point, or do you think we've exited the woods fully?
I think I just think I would say because the video of the stage version is available, it's a great comparison. It's a great comparison.
I definitely plan on making that comparison. Again, I felt like I just had nothing to base it on, and on its own, first time through, it just didn't hit me. I don't think the right way that or not the right way, but the same way that it hit you guys being familiar with it.
Sure.
Yeah. It definitely sounds like
I will also just go on record as saying, with all the Once Upon a Time and Jack and the Giant Slayer, Into the Woods existed before any of it.
Yeah, I'm sure, and you know what? I mean, I absolutely respect that. I think just for me personally, that comment was like, I've had kind of an overdose of that lately, so that's probably why
there's been an overdose of that lately.
Yeah. So I think that's why the field wasn't as fertile for that wood to sink in.
Oh my God!
Oh wow, Brad.
That was dirty.
Sink the wood in, baby.
Sink the wood in, yeah.
All right. Well, Adam, it has been pure joy having you back. Why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you online?
You can find me on.
I don't even know how to respond.
Whoa. Will, are you back with us?
Oh, wait, I'm here.
Don't worry, Adam. Don't worry, Adam. We'll get back to you.
You can find me on Facebook, Adam B. Shapiro. The B can stand for different things on different days. I'm on Twitter at Bway Adam Shapiro. Broadway Adam Shapiro. Sometimes that's what the B stands for. And I'm all over YouTube at this point. Not on XTube yet, but
give it some time.
We keep hoping.
Career needs a boost.
Well, you've got your chest out there right now on the podcast. That's a start, right?
That's all we need right now.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'll be at the Metropolitan Room in New York City on February 16th.
Awesome. Well, we will put links to all of that wonderful, wonderful goodness in our show notes and on the webpage. Adam, it's always a treat to have you, and we'd love to have you back again sometime.
I would love to come back. It's always fun to talk movies with you guys.
It doesn't even have to be a musical. We'll just do.
No.
Get you back for. I mean, we love having you on the show.
I would talk about the interview, but I refuse to see it.
Yeah.
I think this whole controversy, and I'm going to be brief because it doesn't need any more attention. I think the whole controversy was fabricated by Sony because they knew the movie was going to suck and no one was going to see it in the theaters.
That is a theory.
Haven't seen it. I can't say that that's a bad call at all. I think you're good for skipping it.
And I would talk about the Imitation Game, but I haven't seen it yet, and I want to.
Well, you definitely should see that one, Adam. Absolutely.
They talk about him in The Normal Heart.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Mark Ruffalo has a whole monologue after they kick him out of GMHC. He has a whole monologue about him.
Alan Turing.
That's so true.
Cool.
Yeah.
And we owe so much to Alan Turing. I mean, I growler on my Turing machine thanks to Turing. So
We owe growler to Alan Turing.
The machine,
not Turing himself. We are right now all interacting via our Turing machine.
He is the father. He is the father of computers.
Yeah.
Totally. I mean, it's because of Alan Turing that I can go shopping for friends on Growler anytime I want to. So, thank you, Mr. Turing. Appreciate you very much.
Oh, incidentally, the speaking of Growler, the Barrier Soul has a page on Growler.
Perfect. That's awesome.
If people want information.
Excellent. Well, we will direct them that way. Adam, thank you again for joining us. You were awesome.
Have a happy New Year, and I look forward to talking with you guys again in the new year.
Sounds great, Adam. Happy New Year.
Definitely. Bye.
Happy New Year.
Bye. All right, we'll give it a few seconds here. Make sure we're all still connected. Thank you, Google+. Will, are you back?
Yeah, I'm. Have you not hearing me?
Yep.
Oh, okay. I'm just making sure.
Okay, no problem.
I heard little bits and bobs of audio, and I wasn't sure if you were laughing in the background or if it was still stuttering. So.
Oh no, yeah.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was great having Adam back on. He's always a wonderful, wonderful guest to have on the show. Super fun.
It's always a blast. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I'm just realizing we still have 2 more movies to talk about. Are you guys ready to get into the Imitation Game?
Or is it
Oh no, that's right. We're doing the interview for. See, I've pretty much forgotten the interview existed, and now we have to talk about it.
Well, we don't have to talk long about it, fortunately. I think we'll be able to get our points in pretty quickly.
The timer starts now. No, I'm just kidding. Here we go. Our short-lived discussion of the interview. So there's this movie with Seth Rogen and James Franco. Okay, are you ready to talk about the Imitation Game?
Yeah, that's pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. Well, Jim, why don't you give us the very, very short setup on this movie? We talked about it last week for like 40 minutes.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
We don't need much.
We talked a ton about this. Well, about this on last week's MBP episode about the situation surrounding this movie's release, the craziness of the Sony hack and everything that came after that, and the timeline. And we finally got to see it, Brad and I, at one of the independent theaters that it was released in. This movie still has not been released in mainstream theaters that I know of. It was just released in some independent theaters across the country. I think the number was about 150 screens or something like that. And then that was on Christmas Day, and then a day or two later, it was also released on some VOD platforms. So a lot of people, if they didn't see it in an independent theater, they got to see it on VOD for like a $5.99 or $6.99 rental. But anyway, I mean, this movie is, again, it's a Evan Goldberg, Seth Rogen written and directed movie. It also stars James Franco. It's the movie, to me, was typical of what we'd expect from a Seth Rogen, Evan Goldberg, and James Franco comedy. If movies like last year's This Is the End kind of resonate with your funny bone, it's the same familiar style of comedy against some kind of absurd, crazy scenario, and that's what we got in this movie. I guess, and that's pretty much all we would expect going into this movie. I mean, this movie was not a comedy masterpiece, nor did I expect it to be. I did expect it to be just crazy and silly. Seth Rogen, James Franco movie. Not a lot of stoner comedy in this, which was refreshing for me. I know some of Seth Rogen's previous work has revolved around that, and even This Is the End to some degree had much more kind of the stoner comedy in it. This was a little bit less of that, and I appreciated that. A lot of this movie I found pretty funny. Not all of the gags and jokes landed for me. Some of them just totally missed the mark. But I think this movie, for me anyway, had more hits than misses. It was genuinely fun for me all the way through. Its running time, which was somewhere between 90 minutes and 2 hours. And the fact that we finally do learn that Eminem is in fact gay was also a plus for this movie.
Is that a spoiler?
Yeah, I mean there were lots of laughs. Certainly enough for me. I'd like it. I wouldn't recommend that you to rush out and try to find this at a theater. But if you get some friends together for a silly comedy movie for $5.99 or $6.99 VOD, I think it's worth it.
Okay.
You get some laughs out of it.
How about you, Will?
So I ended up watching the interview on YouTube Movies for like $5.99. And honestly, I overpaid. I didn't care much for this film at all, and that's disappointing to me because I really, really, really enjoyed This Is the End, which I think is a much funnier and stronger altogether Seth Rogen-James Franco collaboration. Honestly, I like Seth Rogen. I like James Franco by and large, and they just didn't deliver here for me. I mean, there's some funny sequences. There's this whole thing with like honey dicking, like that comes all the way through and I think that was a really, really funny sequence or a repeat sequence, and that's probably going to be in my vocabulary.
It is forward. Definitely in our vocabulary too.
Oh, you totally got honey dick. But honestly, past that, a lot of the plot beats were very predictable. The humor for me was a little more miss than hit, and the characters felt very, very familiar. I felt like I was just watching another Seth Rogen and James Franco film. It's kind of funny, right? Like, this is, to me, kind of a tepid, forgettable comedy that may just be like the most, air quotes, important film of my generation, at least based on its role in current affairs. And maybe I'm feeling that way because I watched it on VOD instead of watching it in theaters. There's something to be said for watching a comedy surrounded by other people who are laughing and getting into it and something like that. There's something to be said for that. So maybe if you have a local theater near you, an indie theater that's showing it, maybe it's worth it. Or maybe, like Jim said, get a few people around your living room, toss around a few beers, and laugh at a movie together. But for me, just on the merits of the film itself, outside of the context of how important it is or how it might be in a group, I would say this is a pass.
Well, let's see. For me, it's no secret that I am not a fan of Seth Rogen films in general. If you remember our This Is the End episode, which was like a year ago, you probably don't remember that. But anyway, I actually really liked that movie, and it surprised me because most Seth Rogen films I detest in all shapes and sizes. Well, Neighbors kind of was fun too, but anyway, that's an aside. But then the other thing is I just had super, super low expectations for this movie going in. I figured it was going to be awful. And honestly, going in, I was actually surprised how much I enjoyed it. Maybe it's because I had set the bar so low for myself. I don't know. Jim, like you said, the stoner quotient in this movie was way lower than with other films. And I have nothing against, stoner comedy, whatever. I don't know. It just doesn't jive with me. You know what I mean? Especially from like Seth Rogen movies for some reason. Like Pineapple Express, I can't stand. I hate that movie so much. But anyway, this actually had me really entertained. There were a lot of beats where I was kind of laughing out loud, and I'm like, was that me laughing? Wow, that was me laughing. Was that funny? Oh my God, that was something funny. I would say it's kind of an atypical experience for me in a Seth Rogen film. But I mean, I enjoyed it. I appreciated all of the shirtless Seth Rogen that we got. Maybe that was part of it too.
That's always a plus.
Yeah, and I do like seeing him mostly naked, so that was nice. And on a big screen, I took some mental pictures.
There's also some fun chubby booty in this.
There is some chubby booty in this, as Jim.
Which was the one scene I was praying you know how sometimes they put scenes in the trailer, but they don't appear in the movie. I'm like,
oh, right.
This movie will get the worst review from me ever if they do that in this movie. Because that would have been a honey butt.
They totally honey butted you.
Jim totally perked up for that part of the movie.
Yeah.
Got his attention.
It was a butt double, obviously, but it was still fun. Yeah.
Of course. But in terms of this whole like political fiasco, whatever, who the hell cares at this point? Unless something gets blown up, and then I guess we'll care.
Yeah.
But I mean, I thought it was a fun movie. Overall, I don't think it's anything you should rush out and see. But I mean, if you like Seth Rogen comedies, you'll probably like this overall. I don't really know that I have much else to say.
Yeah, I mean, Will mentioned something that I'd just like to just touch on. We don't want to spend a lot of time here, but Will mentioned that it's kind of crazy how just a silly, goofy, goofball comedy that happens to be about a sitting leader of another country, or the assassination of said leader, will become, quote, the most maybe important movie of the year. I'm not sure I agree with that, because that implies that the movie itself is important.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that's the case at all. Nothing could probably be further from the truth. I think what is that the events and discussion around this
circumstance
has been one of the more important movie events of the year, and how this all came about and the craziness around it. But I mean, the movie itself is just a Seth Rogen comedy.
Right.
It just happens to feature a plot that centers around the attempted assassination of a sitting world leader. So,
I think the only other thing I want to say is I liked a lot of the music that was used in this movie, and we're not really going into spoilers, but I thought it had kind of a good soundtrack. I know, Jim, you hate Katy Perry. It kind of...
You ever feel like a plastic
like a paper bag. What plastic bag, is that it? I don't know, whatever.
It's like plastic bag.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do, Will. I do like that song. It's a guilty pleasure of mine. And this movie introduced me to like my favorite cover ever of that song now. I've been listening to it quite a bit. It's used kind of towards the end of the movie, and I really, really dug it. It's kind of an acoustic version of that song that is super awesome. Yes, I bought it on iTunes. Don't judge me, Jim.
No judgment.
No. But there were some great rock songs that were used. I was having some 80s flashbacks. I was having a good time with the soundtrack, too. So, anyway. Yeah, that's the interview. Are you guys ready to move on?
Yeah,
I think so.
I think that's all we need to say about that one.
Okie doke. Then let's move on to our review of the Imitation Game. All right, so we are long in the tooth on this show already, and we have a great big movie to talk about already, to go still. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time. This movie has it's all over the place right now. It's getting so much buzz. You're probably aware of what it is and what it isn't already, but I'll be happy to give a little brief here to kick off our conversation. Of course, I'll say if you're rejoining us after stepping away to avoid spoilers for Into the Woods, we will talk about this movie spoiler-free for a little bit first, then we'll get into spoilers. The Imitation Game is the story of Alan Turing. He was a World War II era cryptanalyst. Is that the way you say that? He was a British computer scientist, mathematician, and he's very famous for, with some help, admittedly, developing Enigma, the computer machine that...
Breaking Enigma.
Breaking Enigma with this computer machine that he and some other folks built, and essentially allowed the Allied powers to win the war by decrypting secret German messages. Alan Turing is also famous for being a homosexual who is discovered, and the movie deals with what kind of happens on both of those fronts. In terms of whether or not you should go see this movie, I say you absolutely should. It's totally relevant to our struggle for gay rights, I feel. For me, it was great sort of comparing how things were then to the life that I enjoy now. But I also just, as a tech guy, I really, really loved watching the development, of Christopher, this machine that is used to break Enigma, and Benedict Cumberbatch, fucking amazing. I love that man so much. I just saw him in Smaug a week ago, and now we got him in the Imitation Game, and I am totally on a Benedict Cumberbatch high right now. Rose Byrne, she was great. I mean, there is just so much to love about this movie. It's definitely made it into my top 10 list of the year. I think it's phenomenal. Go see it. Will, what do you think?
Okay, so I enjoyed this film way more than I was expecting. I'm the other side of the coin from you, Brad. I'm not a big Benedict Cumberbatch fan. He always comes across very wooden and stiff, maybe quirky without depth. Sorry to all of the Bumberdick Cumblepot pants out there. That's the impression he always leaves me with. So I've been really curious. I've been really curious about what he would do with the Turing character, and okay, this might be a breakthrough performance for him, for me. While that same wooden quirkiness is back, it's very fitting with this character, right? And by the film's ending, we'll get to some very, very powerful sequences where we get to see some really strong emoting that Bennigan Campbell Snatch, I owe you a big apology. You actually do have chops, and I really appreciated what you did here. As a film itself, the narrative is a bit of a slow creeper. Full disclosure, probably the very early on parts of the film, I don't know if I was 100% there. Like, I maybe found myself, I don't want to say bored, that's not the right word. This was not a boring film at all. I enjoyed this film a lot, but early on I was like, okay, I get it. And by the middle end portions, the film's sincerity and the gravitas really pulled me in. So yeah, I think that this is an absolute must-see. Again, this is Benedict Cumberbatch at his best for me, hands down at his best, in a story that is extremely relevant, that is extremely well blocked, is extremely well cast, well acted. I have a feeling we're going to be hearing more and more about this film when it's statue time, and I'll have to look and see how it ranks and all things and things. It may not be a top 10 film for me, but that doesn't take away anything from how strong this film is. I do think you should see it. It's quite good.
Awesome. Sorry, had a little audio cut out there. But then you caught up in like a little speed bubble, Will. So, Jim, this show is going to be fun to edit. I'm so sorry. Thanks, Google Plus. You were so much better than Skype like 5 months ago, and now I'm kind of like, maybe we should have stuck to Skype. I don't know. But anyway, okay. Well, Will, I'm glad to hear that Benedict surprised you. Jim, yeah. Where do you fall in this?
Yeah, we're talking here about a biopic, right? This is the life of Alan Turing, and it pretty much sets up as, I would say this could have been a standard biopic for me, except for the fact that they did something in this movie that a lot of movies, I wouldn't say a lot of movies, but some movies do, I think, to kind of break up the narrative and make it kind of twist the narrative a little bit and make it a little bit more interesting. And that is kind of play with the timeline and give us a non-linear telling of the story. In this case, they jump between basically 3 periods in Alan Turing's life. When he was going to school as a young kid, probably in junior high school, and then during the time of World War II, leading up to the breaking of the Enigma code, and then afterwards, after his time doing that, when he was found out and convicted of homosexual crimes, which were illegal in Britain back in the 50s, in the early 50s. I don't know when those laws were repealed, but we find out later. Well, I'll save a lot of that for spoilers, even though I don't think there's much to spoil when it comes to biopics per se, unless you really just don't know much about that person's life and you discover it through the movie, in which case almost everything is a spoiler. I will say, I love this movie. I found it emotional in all the right spots. I kind of put the two things together and say it's code breaking and heartbreaking at the same time.
Aww.
But I would say that I want to address maybe criticism that I've heard about this movie, and that some people, particularly from the gay community, have criticized the film's portrayal of his homosexuality in the movie, claiming that we didn't see enough of that side of him as a character in the movie. But I kind of disagree with that. Sure, they didn't show him having an affair per se. They didn't show any. There wasn't any gay love scenes, physical representation of the gay love scene. But I thought the way they handled his struggle with homosexuality was perfect, and kind of wove it into the fabric of the story, and built the character into the tragic hero that he is. I thought the supporting cast was excellent. Charles Dance was very good, but he was basically the same exact character that he is in Game of Thrones, just with a different uniform on. He had a Navy uniform on instead of the Lannister House uniform. He was exactly the same character. Maybe not quite as evil, but he was pretty much a hard ass. Mm-hmm. I would say Keira Knightley was great, and Rory Kinnear had a very small part as a police detective, I guess, in this movie. But I really liked his understated performance, and I got to give credit to the kid who played the young Alan Turing in this movie. I thought he did a phenomenal job. As a matter of fact, you could swear that kid went to the Benedict Cumberbatch School of Acting for this role, because he picked up the mannerisms and facial expressions perfectly, and I just really like that. I think this is one of the year's best films. I'm not sure where my top 10 list ranks, because unlike you guys, I haven't actually racked and stacked those movies yet for my top 10, leaving it open a little while longer. But I think you're right, Will. When it comes statue time, I think we're going to be hearing a lot about this movie. I loved it. I think people should go out and see it, especially if you want to learn about a key figure in gay history. Alan Turing was it. He's the father of computers, as we, he kind of birthed the idea of a machine that does computations. So I'd go out and see it.
And it's all because of Alan Turing that you can order out through Growler and Scruff. So you should get on your knees and thank Mr. Turing.
I do that whenever I can.
Oh my.
Oh my gosh.
Oh boy. Are you guys ready to get into some spoilers for the Imitation Game?
Sure, let's jump right in. Even though, like I said, there's probably not a lot of earth-shattering spoilers in this
Maybe not. But okay. So how familiar were you guys with Alan Turing and his contributions prior to this movie? Would you say you had a fairly good idea?
Highlights.
Okay.
I knew what his role was. I knew what ended up happening to him and why it ended up happening, but didn't know a lot more past that.
Yeah, I think I knew a bit. Before going to see this in the months, I had plugged this movie. I don't know if you guys remember, but way back earlier in the year, when I heard that this was coming out, I had kind of plugged this movie on the show, saying that this is going to be one to watch for. Luckily, I was right, and I wasn't taken to task for it. But in that time, I had kind of read a little bit, just on Wikipedia and stuff, about Alan Turing and about his life and what he was really like. Because I know that in the movies, they don't always portray the person the same way that the facts sometimes do. And I think this movie tried to do that pretty closely. One of the things that was interesting in the movie is that at the end, and here's where the spoiler comes in. They said that he had committed suicide, but if you read up a little bit about the character, there are some people who dispute that claim, because he was found dead in his flat of cyanide poisoning with an apple, like a half-eaten apple or something, next to his bed, and it wasn't clear whether it was an intended suicide or an accidental dose of cyanide. Because, and I thought the movie handled that very a little vaguely, because at the very first scene was him in the apartment, if you remember, cleaning up cyanide on the floor, and told the detectives, like, you better not touch that shit, because like one little bit of it is gonna fuck you up, and that just kind of set the stage or laid the seed for maybe, he was in his work creating these machines and doing his scientific work. He did have cyanide as a regular chemical or compound at his disposal, so it wasn't. I mean, most people do think that it was a suicide, but some people say it may have been an accident.
Well, that's what I was going to ask about, because that's the official story, is that he committed suicide. But you're right, Jim. There was that moment early on with cyanide, but then later on, when Rose Byrne shows back up again, and they're having their little reunion or whatever, like she's trying to get him to like do a crossword puzzle or something, right? And his hand is trembling so bad he can't write. I mean, obviously, he's very emotionally disturbed at that point. He's very, afflicted by the chemical castration, to the point that he can't even like do something like fill out a crossword puzzle. So it totally is not outside the realm of possibility, for me at least, that maybe he accidentally exposed himself. You know what I mean, to a compound that killed him. So,
although even on top of that, like if you read up on Turing, one of the other things that's interesting about him is like the hormones that he was given, the chemical castration, did other things to his body too.
Thanks, Google Plus.
I think we've lost Will.
He may have lost himself entirely in the woods of
Are you back?
Google Plus.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, welcome back. Okay. Do you want to back up to where you were talking about the other thing or whatever you were saying?
You got to the chemical castration.
Yeah, I mean, the chemical castration did a bunch of things to him, aside from just the shakiness and the illness. It caused him to grow breasts. It caused other body morphing issues. And he wrote several journal entries and letters to friends just about how distraught he was, that when he looks into the mirror, he's not even himself anymore. So either way you look at it, it's terribly sad. Interesting story. They actually shot a different ending to this film. Did you guys read about that?
No.
I think I heard something about them actually showing him taking the dose or killing himself and dying. Yeah.
They shot a scene with him like he's laying in his bed, like frame out of focus, and he's obviously dead, with the apple sitting on the nightstand with the bite out of it. And then they ended up cutting it because they thought it came across as goofy, like it was some sort of weird Apple, like the product commercial.
Yeah.
Because, they did, he said think differently like 12 times. And obviously, think different, is one of the Apple slogans. So that kept popping out at me. So maybe it would have been a little too on the nose.
It's kind of like a myth or urban folklore that that the Apple symbol that we see today, which is the apple with the bite taken out of it, was fashioned after the story about him and the apple on his bedside when he died. But Apple totally has disavowed any connection, and they have their own reason for the apple. But yeah, I mean, this just one of the other things I want to mention about this movie is the decoding of the Enigma machine and the way they showed. I think they kind of hit it perfectly for me. I mean, I'm glad they didn't get into too much of the technical. How do I say this? Kind of like the workings of the machine and how it decoded each thing, and what the inputs were and what the outputs were. I think that would have watered down the real story here, which is about this guy's life and his mind and his struggles. And I think that was what came across in the movie for me. I mean, they did kind of touch on it and said how many combinations that it had to eliminate, and there's one scene where they actually hit on a shortcut to decoding Enigma based on a repeated message that they got, the Heil Hitler part of the message in every message, which I thought was really cool. But I'm just glad they didn't get too deep into the technical and code-breaking mumbo-jumbo and muddy the plot with that.
Yeah, I agree. I think I think they did a good job of showing us just enough of like the technology and the development without it being too mired in how it works and why it works. And I mean, I think we got the high level that we needed. I was just impressed that apparently Alan Turing was like a super intelligent spy defeater and was able to figure out who the Soviet spy was just by looking at the Bible. That was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing. So, Jim, you had texted me asking if I remembered what our Benedict Cumberbatch names were.
Yeah, there's a meme on Facebook, right?
Yeah. So I remember mine. Mine was Blubberdick Oxfordshire. Which kind of like Blubberdick, but Blubberdick Oxfordshire. Jim, was yours like something Toodle Snoot or something or
something Snatch or something? I forget what.
Crunkle Snatch or something? I don't know.
Yeah.
But you can totally go to the Benedict Cumberbatch name generator. Will, have you done that?
No, but I want mine to be Honey Dick.
Honey Dick?
Honey Dick Snaggletooth?
There's the link, Will. It's in the chat. Go to it right now and see what your Benedict Cumberbatch name is.
I am Bumberstump Kryptonite.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
Very well.
There we go.
All right. That's Bumberstump Kryptonite. That's kind of
Bumblestump Kryptonite. I'll take it.
Blubberdick Oxfordshire.
Yeah, the other thing I want to mention is, I mean, there were two really good biopics that kind of stand out this year. One was The Theory of Everything, and one was The Imitation Game. In my mind, I think this one just noses out The Theory of Everything just a little bit, just because I thought the story, I don't know, maybe it was because a man who struggled all his life with his homosexual feelings and was tragically persecuted for those things, and just kind of like a tragic hero, more so than the Stephen Hawking story. Both movies very well done, and both are worthy of seeing. If you haven't seen those two, get out and see those before Oscar time, because I think you're going to hear a lot about both of them, and maybe a little bit more about this one.
Agreed. All right, well, you guys ready to move on to some pluggage?
Do it.
It's time.
All right. Awesome. So this is the part of the show where we recommend things that you should check out because we think they're awesome. Jim, what do you think is awesome this week?
I am going to plug a movie we just got out of seeing, a couple hours ago. And that is a movie called Wild, W-I-L-D. This is a movie by Jean-Marc Vallée, who directed The Dallas Buyers Club last year, which was a very well-regarded movie and very well-reviewed on the show, starring Reese Witherspoon. It's a really great movie. I was on the fence about seeing it because I wasn't sure whether I would like it or not. But it's a great movie. It's what it's about. Besides about hiking and camping and hiking the Pacific Crest Trail, I should say, it's a movie about redemption, I guess, and coming to terms with the things in your life that you can't control and that happen to you, as well as how you deal with the things that you've done and are within your control but that you might regret. Fantastic performance here by Reese Witherspoon. I think we're going to see her nominated for a Best Actress Oscar at the end of the year, who, like Benedict Cumberbatch in The Imitation Game, basically carries this movie, being in almost every scene.
Yeah.
I also loved Laura Dern is in this movie in a much smaller role, but really, really good.
It's phenomenal.
Pitch perfect performance as the character that Reese Witherspoon plays, who is Cheryl Strayed as her mother. Also, for me, this movie kind of struck a chord because I used to do a lot of hiking and backpacking, and not on the Pacific Crest Trail, but on the Appalachian Trail on the East Coast. And so a lot of the things she does on the trail are exact situations that I've been in. The hiking blisters, the boots that don't fit right, the getting lost and wondering if you're on the right trail or not.
The Simon and Garfunkel.
Yeah, Simon, and the soundtrack in this movie is also amazing. I was super blown away by this movie. I thought the cinematography was fantastic as well. I would recommend people go out and see this if we don't get a chance to review it. Take that as my review.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, basically, Reese Witherspoon goes into the woods and comes out.
There you go, into the woods. I see what you did there.
Well done. Well done.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Jim. Going into that movie, I didn't have huge expectations. I saw Reese Witherspoon doing an interview with Oprah because the book that the movie is based on was, I guess, in Oprah's Book of the Month Club. But I didn't realize there was a book component to it at the time. I think I caught midway through the interview. And Oprah's like interviewing her about this movie, and she's like, "Oh, it's all about like being a daughter and sisterhood and motherhood and da-da-da." And so I turned to Jim earlier, and I'm like, we have a friend who was going with us to the movie, and he's wondering what it's about. And I'm like, basically a vagina goes on a tractor, and I was just kidding. But I had low expectations for the movie just because I like Reese Witherspoon, but I've never found her particularly weighty in anything that she's been in. So I was just really astounded and blown away by her performance as well. I thought it was great. So it's a great pick. It would have been my plug, but Jim plugged it first. So instead, I'm going to plug something else. Mike Cruz, one of our founding fathers of the Movie Bears podcast, recently sent me a message on Facebook telling me I should check out a show called Marco Polo, a Netflix original. Things have been pretty swamped the last few weeks, so I really haven't had a chance to check it out till the last couple days, and Jim and I have been binge watching it a little bit. I think we're through like 6 episodes, I think.
5 or 6, yeah.
Yeah, and it's a little all over the place sometimes, and the title character, Jim, I think you would agree, is kind of a snooze a little bit. But I'm just enjoying this series so much. It's basically all about how Marco Polo comes to be in the court of Kublai Khan back in Mongolia and the war.
Feudal Mongolia and China.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I've always had a huge just I don't know, for some reason I really love like Chinese Oriental culture, and I love the music, I love the staging, I love the sets. I'm kind of in love with the period piece of this show. It's kind of like Game of Thrones and feudal Mongolia minus dragons. So it's fun. The first season is on Netflix. I think there's only 10 episodes in the first season. So if you like Game of Thrones, you might like Marco Polo. Check it out. So all right, Will, what about you?
So mine's a callback. We talked about it earlier, but if you want to check out Into the Woods and you want to see kind of what the stage play is like, there is a televised production that I think was originally through PBS that you can actually rent or purchase through Amazon Instant Video. It's like $2.99 to rent, maybe $8.99 to purchase. So if you're looking for it, just go on Amazon and search for Into the Woods Stephen Sondheim, and it'll show up there. You can rent it. It is a fantastic stage production. Bernadette Peters, I absolutely adore her in this. I think you should. This is the movie for me is that you got to go watch it. I would say that the stage production is right there with it. If you haven't seen it, it is absolutely a must watch.
Awesome.
Yeah, well, I definitely plan on checking that one out because, I mean, like I said, I don't know. I think for some reason after hearing people talk about the movie that I saw, I feel like I somehow missed the bus. So I'm gonna give it a shot.
Definitely. Well, that was a fun show. Yes. I think the discussion was kind of varied. I like that we had such a good back and forth in regards to Into the Woods. I think it's indicative of a lot of the discussion that's happening right now on social media about the movie. Seems like there's kind of the two primary camps: those who loved it and those who absolutely hated it. Feel like I kind of fall in the middle. That's good. But I just love that this time of year there's so many good movies to see and talk about. We're kind of starting to come out of that period here in the next few weeks, but and maybe go back into it again. I don't know. Is there anything else like Oscar buzzy that's coming out?
Oh yeah, 2 Days, One Night.
What's that? Selma, I know, right?
Selma, definitely Selma will be in the discussion for sure.
Right. What else have we got?
Hold on, I've got.
Well, 2 Days, One Night is one that I definitely is on my list. I don't know if it'll be a big contender, but it's one of those smaller movies.
Yeah, you're gonna see Marion Cotillard up for Best Actress for that one. That's already the buzz. Same thing with Julianne Moore for Still Alice, which is coming out soon.
Yep.
Inherent Vice is in some theaters. It's not in all. Selma, A Most Violent Year, and Big Eyes. There's still a lot left on the horizon.
So for at least the next several weeks, we've got some great stuff that's coming down the pipeline. Great time for movies before we enter the desolate waste zone. I like to call it the Hansel and Gretel waste zone of like.
I like to call it the woods.
I think I agree with that. But anyway, all right, guys. Well, not sure what we're doing for next week yet.
This is where we get our
Uh-oh. What's that, Will?
This is where we get our...
There we go. I was just echoing. This is where we get our really crappy January movies. They're coming up very soon.
Well, for the next few weeks, we've got some good stuff coming, so that'll be good. We'll figure out what we're going to do next week. Have a good one all. Have a safe and happy New Year, and we'll see you in 2015. Bye.
All right. Happy New Year.
Bye.